Hi everyone. Yes, my name is Andrey Sitnik, and I'm working in Able Martians company. We are a consultancy for the DevTools. I am there the lead front-end developer, but I'm here to share my experience in open source. I have about 20 years of experience, and when I started to write open source, there was no GitHub. My first open source projects are on the website called SouthForge. It's like GitHub for very old people. I will try to share my experience of creating these tools and making them popular. So you will be able to make your tools popular as well. But the first question you should ask yourself when you want to make your software popular, do I need to write it? Do I need to make it popular? Because right now people always say us that we must to have open source, that everyone should have open source. Like the son of your mother's friend have open source and you not. And they say that just bring us the idea and your open source become popular, that everyone will talk about it. But unfortunately the reality of open source is completely different. And it's exactly opposite what people say us. It's very important to understand that if you will make a very popular project, it sometimes will not bring you popularity. Because there is a lot of good maintainers of very big projects. For instance, this is a maintainer of Redux and React Router. And he has only, 5,000 followers on Twitter. It's like very small number. There is a much better way to become popular. If you want to become popular, it's much better to speak on the conference and to write articles. And the new GitHub projects, it's not the best way to create a resume. If you want to find a good job, it's much better to send a commit to the Babel, because to some big projects, because it will take a week and months. Or if you want to create a new project, you will spend about months or two creating a new project, and then only your grandmother will like it on the GitHub. And it will be not so popular for the work. If you want something, if you want a very good resume, the better way is to create a new application, because it shows you like a production skill. Or it's very easy to fix documentation in very popular project, because documentation always sucks. Or you can start to use beta version of any popular software, and you will find so much bugs there. Then you will report it, fix it, and go to the core team in just a year. It's much better strategy to go to find a good lines for your resume. There is only, I think that there is only one good way, good reason to write new open source projects if you want to change the world. For instance, I started after prefixer because I hate Compass and I want to kill this project. And yeah, it works. This is right now deprecated. Or for instance, I started post CSS because I wanted more diversity in CSS tooling. I want create a basement so people will be able to create a new projects. And it's not so good as I expected, but still there is a very nice project like Stylint. This is a linter for the CSS. Or for instance, my favorite one, one of favorite one is child. There is no most favorite one. But one of the favorite one is RTL CSS. It will take your CSS and generate Arabic or Hebrew design from it, mirroring the design, because they write different direction. Or for instance, another project size limit, the idea was to finally make JavaScript smaller, but it was not success. We still have a problem. Okay, you know what you want to change. What is success formula to it? First, you need to understand that if you have a good idea, it doesn't mean your project will be popular. There is a few very popular projects which I created, but the reality is that I created much more unpopular projects. And there is no system here. It's not the last one. I still create the new unpopular projects. I believe that a popularity success formula is your project popularity will be based on your popularity, on how much attention you put to promotion, the benefits for the user, and the luck. And there is no idea here, unfortunately. There is only benefits for the user. Okay, I'm a system guy, so I prefer to think in theories. So let's create axioms of how to make your projects popular. We know this formula. Then, a lot of people think that every developer have rational choice across all options. How many web developers here who create websites? How much of you creating a small version of your website on Svelte to be sure that this is a good framework for you? Unfortunately, reality is completely different. People make a rational choice across only popular options. Then, you need to understand that right now, in the modern days, nobody reads like this. Unfortunately, people read like this. They don't have time for it. Okay, what do you need? How do you need to prepare to make a project popular? First, project popularity depends on your popularity. And one of my first mistake was that I had only account in Russian. So when I created Autoprefixer, American audience didn't know whom to follow, whom to congrats. So the first preparation step is to create account in English. I know it's not maybe popular in France, but this is a very important part. Then you need to understand that luck is a part of the popularity formula. And it means that sometimes a very good project will be not popular just because of no luck. And there is only one way to hack the luck, is to make it more and more, to make a new projects every time. And you need to be ready. You need to be ready for failure even if your project is very good. Okay, real steps. First, the first step you need to do to make your open source popular is to write a very good documentation. Documentation is the key because every user will go to this page. Every your effort will lead to this page. This is why it's so important. Again, people don't read. They scan because they don't have a time. But they will use your tool only if they see the benefits for them. But unfortunately, people will not read documentation if they don't see a benefits. But documentation explains the benefits. So it's tricky thing. This is why you should start your documentation from the benefits, to create the reasons to continue reading it. This is why in the beginning of your documentation, it should be very clear description of what you do and how this project is useful for users and how it's different from another tools. For instance, how do we start documentation for PostCSS? We describe what is it in one simple sentence, then we describe how it's useful, and then we describe why it is important by the big names. And we spent about a week writing that 3 sentences, and it's okay. You need to be ready to put a lot of effort into the beginning of your talk, of your documentation, because this is a very important part. After prefixer, again, very clear description, and then why it's important. Or a different way, we have a clear description here, but we use a list to explain the difference from the similar tool. I like Svelte, but here is a bad example. The Svelte description start, Svelte is cybernetically enhanced web apps. What does it mean? How it's helpful? For instance, I will describe it Svelte is JavaScript framework with unique compiler which generates smaller JavaScript files. Smaller JavaScript files, it means what is the difference? JavaScript framework, it's clear description, etc. It's very important, clear description and benefits and difference. The best way to write a simple description is imagine that you are going to the bar, your friends is there, and they're like, where did you was that week? And you was just guys and girls, I wrote an awesome tool. And then next sentence, which you imagine yourself explaining to your friends what your tool does, this is a very good description. But then you need to cut it by half or even more. Then again, people, if you will write a very good description, they will not read every line. They will read something like this. And this is okay, this is the reality, we will not change it. So to solve this problem of people need reasons to read the doc, but the reasons is inside the docs, you need to use a way similar to the progressive spec. You need to create the overview And then if people will be interested, they are going to the more details. For instance, illustration works very well. Like people will scan illustration before they read the text. And if they like illustration, they will go to read. Or code examples. We are developers. We are processing code much faster than text. This is why this is a good way to start reading your file. Then use list and bolts, because like what people like this format because it's easy to scan. And like highlight the most important part of your list in the bold. So like people will not read everything. They will read like this, but they will understand like the most important part. And use real proofs. If you say that your tool is small, show the bytes. If you say that your tool is fast, show the benchmark. If you say that your tool has a good API, show this API. And then, after you describe what your tool does, make a very simple step-by-step guide how to start using your tool. Again, your user will not have a time. Most of your users will add your library to their projects because they needed to do it yesterday. And they don't have a time to understand, to like play with it. This is why it should be very specific. For instance, I don't say like use post-CSS. I explain where to find a config, how to edit, etc. It should be very explicit. If like there is a multiple options, explain this choice. Like if you don't have a post-CSS, then like try this use tool or this tool, depending on what you're using. If like there is a multiple types of the users, make a different section for them. So it will be easy for them to start using your tool. And after you wrote the step-by-step guide, try it. Create a new user on your machine and really do this step-by-step. And you will find that unfortunately your first attempt is like sucks, doesn't work. It's unfortunately will be with reality. Okay, we finished with the good documentation. What next? There is a very popular mistake. You know, you wrote a tool, you post a tweet, and nobody retweeted, and so you have depression. In the reality, the promotion is like iterational steps. It's step by step. It's very slow. It's like one by one. It contains many iterations, and in each iteration you have an action, like you write tweet, article, etc. Then you collecting feedback, and then you fixing your project. And this is very important because, like, each iteration you should start from the small iteration and then go bigger and bigger, because according to this feedback you will fix your project. Your first step is to explain your tool to your friends, so they will understand it. And this step you will find a better description of your tool according to the feedback to your friends, from your friends. Then, on the second stage, try to convince your colleague to use your tool on their projects. Then you will find a lot of issues with documentation, install guides, etc. Only then go to social media. On the third step, your task is to find the best way to describe it for like random people. And then like write to social media again and again on every big feature. Don't write it only once. In every tweet, explain what like new feature does, like if it's a tweet about the feature, but then explain what project does from the beginning. Because if they, like your friends will retweet this tweet, people who like will see retweet first time, they will not understand what your project does. This is why it's important to write again what small description about your project, and always code example or screenshot, because people like images, they don't read, unfortunately. Then on the first step, go to Reddit and Hacker News, and then people will bring you a lot of compatibility issues because you know Linux, Windows, Mac, etc. Only then write a good article in English, like Dev2, Smashing Magazine, etc. And then, funny part, if like you create a library, it's okay to go to open source application or other library and ask them to use your tool. For instance, CSS models in Webpack, it use post-CSS, but not because it was from the beginning, but because I went to the author of CSS models and convinced him to switch to the post-CSS. And if your pull request to another big libraries approved, use it into your documentation, like CSS models use us. So it will bring you more new users. And then don't stop making iteration. Make it again and again. This is unfortunately how promotion work. Don't be spam, of course, but be regular. Try at least like post every 2 weeks. It's good amount of tweets. Why? Because if you will write one tweet, your maybe best user could be drunk at that day because they go to the bar and they could lost your tweet. This is why it's important to tweet multiple times, because people don't read every tweet in the Twitter. Second, why it's important to do it in iteration, because your project will be full of mistakes. And with this iteration, you will find these mistakes and fix them before you're going to the big public. And then, why it's important to do it like regularly. People choose irrationally. The most important part is not like how fast is your tool, how good is CPI. The most important part for the people, like how long the author will support this project. And if you will tweet it only once, people will think that you have no interest in this project. But if you will tweet it every week, people see that you still care about the project and will use it, because this is what's most important for the people. Okay, you do everything right, and now your project is popular, and you have a lot of issues from the users. How to deal with it? It's very popular mistake if you have a project to make, I call it the circle of guilt. You have an issue, you don't have time to answer, then you start blaming yourself, then you feel depression, and then you don't have energy to fix issues, and you have more issues. And so you are going deeper into this depression, into this circle of guilt. Here is the solution. You don't need to write a code if somebody asks you. Issues in open source, it's not free support. Open source is about community. If somebody needs something, they could do it. Just like explain how you see the solution. Then, like I have a tradition. Every beginning of the day, I'm starting with 15 minutes on answering the new issues. Like it's just a regular tradition, and it helped me reducing the number and not feel guilt. Then, it's completely okay to ask people to wait. For instance, like if you don't have an answer of how to write it, just say it like, I will think about it next week, next month, next year. Like it's not a free support, it's their problem. Because people sometimes doesn't need a solution, they need to be heard. And like, even if you write like, sorry, I'm too drunk, I'm going to bar, I will not solve your problem. It could be beginning of the very nice friendship. Then, if you have any issues, solution must to fix, avoid this issue in the future. So you will not have it again. For instance, if your user is dumb, every user is dumb, and make mistakes every time, this is not a problem of user. This is problem of your API. Add some warning. For instance, in PostCSS, a lot of users put a parser into the plugin list and wrote me it doesn't work, the issue. But yes, you put a parser to the plugin list. There is a special option for parser. Don't put it there. But instead of blaming user, I just wrote a simple check which will print a special warning to the user, and I don't have these issues again. Or if it's impossible to write a check, just put a special line to documentation. Use this or this. For instance, in Prefixer, a lot of people ask me about the polyfills, not prefixes, and I just put to the documentation that does it add polyfills, and say no. And it's reduce the number of issues. So I have a more free time in the future. If you add it to documentation, but people still create an issue, ask them why they didn't find a solution in documentation. Because they are better in understanding and problem of your documentation than you, unfortunately, sorry for that. Okay, but what about the negative feedback? What if people hate you and hate your tool? I'm not sure about the solution still. There is no simple solution. It's really hard. It's really feel you angry. But there is a nice trick. If you have some negative feedback, start from the question. Why? Because a lot of haters, they don't really hate your project. Sometimes they just need a person to talk. And the funny part, that one of my biggest fan who put projects in every put my library in every project and promote it to the whole internet, some of them was the biggest haters. I just start to talk with them and then becoming a fan and start to spread the tool. And then it's very important that open source is not competition. If there is a better tool, it doesn't mean that you are bad. It means that you could be free. Open source is a free slavery of maintainers. And if there is a better project and users are going to these projects, it means that they will not use your project, and they will not create new issues. And so it will be not your problem anymore. Because these all users, they don't bring you money. It's like a free slavery. And this is why any competition is good. Because this is a way for you to avoid this, to run away from this slavery. This is why F means freedoms, if you know what I mean. Okay, resume. Success formula. Your project popularity is your popularity, English account in social media. Your effort to promotion, benefits for user, and luck. People choose irrationally across only popular options. This is reality. People don't read, they scan. This is reality. It will never be like in good old days. Then, the most critical part is README. It should start from the clear description. It should explain how your product is useful for users. It should explain the difference from others. And it should have a very simple step-by-step guide of how to start using it. Then, don't do promotion once. Do it iterationally. Like every 2 weeks, write new posts, new articles, new talk to meetups, etc. Do it like iteration by iteration. That's all. If you have any open source projects, you can ask me in social media how to promote them. I will be very happy to help you. And of course, I can answer your question on this after party. Conference is about after party, by the way. And this is my social media. So Twitter, Mastodon, and the social media of Evil Martians, consultancy for the DevTools. Thank you.